On this episode, we are going to talk about how to produce lots of work, but not be a workaholic. Hey guys, Adam Steele here on another episode of the Steele Entrepreneur Show. This is episode 29, and today we are going to talk all about producing lots of work, doing lots of good work, but not being a workaholic. One of the things I wish I had done earlier is I do wish I'm glad I worked as hard as I did, but I don't know that I necessarily worked all that smart. I didn't know, I hadn't read or experienced any of the things that I have to date. And so as I was growing, I didn't build intelligent systems. I didn't plan for growth. I didn't plan for a time where I wouldn't be working 18-hour days, 16-hour days. And so 7 years in now, I'm just breaking away from that. And that's entirely unnecessary. I missed very potentially a good chunk of life there, an opportunity to do other things beside work, but instead I was trapped. I built my own fucking prison essentially, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about why that's important and how to avoid that, but still get the work done. So let's get to it. Okay, so I am going to sound a little bit like a broken record here, but it's imperative. It is the first step to any of this shit, to optimizing, to be able to measure what you are doing right now, to audit what you are doing right now. Because as Peter F. Drucker says, you cannot manage what you can't measure. You must be able to measure it first. So step one is to audit. It's to figure out what it is that you are doing right now and to have sort of a way of putting that on a page, because you won't remember what you did yesterday. Like, you won't remember the items. I promise you just won't. So you need a way to manage, or rather to measure that. And the way that you do that is you set up a time tracker. FreshBooks is a great example of that. It's got a free time tracker, and it lets you sort of add notes to every single work item you do. Live by that. Commit to that for 30 days, and then print it out, or to just put it in front of you, look at every single day, and you will get a sense of everything you did during that sort of 30 days. And it takes about 30 days. And then from there, and in fact, I would say, before I go on, I would say pair that with Trello. I found this to work really well. I pair it with Trello, and I add tasks or notes or cards or whatever you want to call them for every task that I do. So everything that I do is in Trello, and I can visualize it, which is important because you want to be able to see everything all in one place versus something like FreshBooks or time tracking within FreshBooks, where you can kind of only see like a day at a time. So it's harder to spot redundancies or spot duplicates of things, or things that you're doing, more than once, more than twice, 3 times, 4 times, whatever. And it's really important that you spot that stuff. And so after 30 days, you just analyze all this stuff, and you just start the process of eliminating, because you're not going to get away from being a workaholic. You're not going to be able to do more important stuff, the stuff that you are uniquely capable of doing, unless you stop doing some of the things that you don't need to do, right? And you're not going to be able to figure out what you need to stop doing until you put it all in front of you. So great way to do that is FreshBooks, time tracking, Trello, and then just analyzing it. And if you want to go one step further, commit to someone. Find somebody that will review those details with you each day. Find someone that you can send your daily time tracking to, and you will feel like shit if you didn't do well, which is to say, like, you worked 16 hours, but you've only got 5 hours tracked. That is going to feel like crap. So by sending it to someone, you're more accountable. You're more accountable because you would otherwise not feel so good if you were only able to achieve 5 hours of real work. And it's a real chin check if you're only working 5 real hours and yet you're in front of your computer for 16 hours. So that's what I would start with first. My next piece of advice, my next how, is to embrace efficiencies. Basically what you want to look for is tools that are going to make your life easier. Apps that are going to, good example, there's one that I use, it's an okay example. There's one that I use that basically every time I go to Facebook, every time I type Facebook in my browser or Twitter in my browser, it blocks me and it says, go fucking work. And it's just like, I see that, I'm just like, oh shit, I feel guilty. Close it, go back to work. And it's little things like that. And that's not a great example, but there are other ones, productivity apps, effectiveness apps, apps that, time tracking apps. I've even seen those for cheap. So check that out. It will save you a lot of time. The other option that I would recommend, or other things that I would recommend, are If This Then That, or Zapier. They're integration tools. They're tools that basically take steps out of your daily process. So an example might be we use FreshBooks for our invoicing, but we use QuickBooks for our accounting. And so what we have put together is a Zap, an integration, which requires no coding, which is beautiful, that basically grabs those invoice details, grabs that new client details, and sends it every 15 minutes, sends it over via Zapier to QuickBooks. And now I don't have to, now my bookkeepers don't have to add that client or add that customer. So constantly looking for these little tweaks. Maybe it only saves you 5 minutes a week, but that shit starts to add up. And if you start your business looking for these efficiencies, I did not do this. I promise you I did not do this, and I regret it. But like Danny, I am gonna beat the crap out of him if he doesn't do this, because I know for a fact that I know where that leads. It leads to just less happiness. I want happiness for Danny. I want happiness for you guys. I want you to discover these apps so that you get to focus on what you actually enjoy instead of doing this little minutia, these small, stupid things. Trello. I will preach Trello. I will scream Trello's name from the top of a mountain because it is the most amazing project management software I've ever used. It helps my team, which is remote, which works. I've got people in Africa, we've got people in South America, we've got people in the Philippines, we've got people in all over the world. The only way that we could possibly work together like we do, as efficiently and effectively as we do, is using stuff like Trello. And what we've done is we've paired that with stuff like with Scrum, like the Scrum framework, which is basically a workflow management framework that we use, that we subscribe to, that we employ in our daily in our daily work. It's this, it's how do I describe it? It just teaches us how to move and how to move together and how to move on time. If you haven't heard of it, look it up. There's a wonderful book, Scrum, The Art of Doing Twice the Amount in Half the Time. So take 5-10 minutes out of each day and just look for little tools to help you out. They exist. They exist out there, and they will save your life. The next point that I want to make is to grow strategically, which is to basically grow with thought, to know that, okay, well, I got to do this shit right now. Like, I've got to sweat it out. I've got to work hard, but I don't want to work hard. And we talked about this a little bit at the beginning of this, is I don't want to work like this forever. I don't want to always work like a dog. I want to have other things. I want to have a life. I want to have a family. I want to spend time with said family. I want to do sports, etc., right? You may not be able to do a lot of that right now, but you want to plan to do a lot more of that in the future. And so I have a few ways that might help you get there. And one is to focus a little bit more on the numbers. And I can totally appreciate that we don't all like looking at the numbers. We don't all like looking at the truth, essentially, because sometimes it can be depressing, and sometimes it can hit us where it hurts. It can kill our motivation, and so we avoid them, right? But it's really important that you do look at them. And I remember I didn't hire a bookkeeper or an accountant for the longest time. And so there was nobody to put me in check to say, hey, Adam, you should really pay attention to these things. I remember 3 years ago, I found out that we had, our business was basically just, we weren't making any money. We essentially were all working our asses off. We weren't making any money. In fact, we were going more and more into the hole every single month. And that was a very depressing realization. But what I found coming out of that, by starting to pay attention to the numbers, is I started to find that, we're not doing all that bad. There's just like this one product that is a total money pit, and it makes us no money. So we got rid of that product. And I had to, there was a pride aspect. So I had to sort of just check my pride, but we got rid of it. We got rid of some other things. We optimized some other things, and we're a hell of a lot more profitable now. But that only comes from looking at the numbers. The next thing, and this is kind of a silly thing, like I don't like to talk a lot about money. I don't like to talk a lot about money making me happy, because it's just not something I'm super, super proud of, but it kind of does. And it does when it comes in and I didn't do anything to make that happen. I didn't work 3 hours to make that $100 or whatever it is. It's just tastier. It tastes better. It's sweeter when it comes in overnight while you're sleeping in your PayPal account. We should all aim to not work for, not to trade our time for money. We should aim to create passive income, to sell products, to sell things that just require somebody to download and pay, and that's it. And we all have things like this. I'll use a perfect example. We have a client who's in the wedding industry, and she has this wonderful, wonderful checklist. This checklist of what every bride and groom should do in preparing for their wedding, right? And it is like something that was slaved over. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It is a valuable resource. She's going to sell it for $7 a piece, right? She's done it once. She's done the work. Might have put 10 hours, 20 hours into it, right? But it's her expertise. And so you download it, you pay for it, done. So she's going to wake up and she's going to find cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. And she didn't do anything. At some point, it's paid for itself. And so we should start to think about that, because that's how we start to buy just a little bit more freedom for ourselves. And finally, we should really focus on what it is that we are uniquely good at. What it is that requires 20% of the effort, but gives us 80% of that value. And it's through that auditing process that I talked about earlier that we can start to discover those sort of things. Because again, we tend to be, myself especially, we tend to be quite ignorant to the things that we do on a daily basis. So by putting them in front of us, we can start to identify, some of the things that we enjoyed, some of the things that meant something to us, and also some of the cause and effect, some of the things that translated into money or contribution or value for ourselves, our family, our team, our customers, whomever. And we can double down on that stuff. And that's something I'm working really hard on right now, because I get so much more good feelings when I do that stuff. When I do stuff that's meaningful, it feels like I get to the end of my day and I fucking accomplished something. And we should all want for that. I know I want for that for me, and I certainly want that for you guys. So just some tips. I really want us to get away from this culture of workaholics. And I think we can, in fact, I'm starting to realize myself that we can get away from that. And we can still get just as much, if not more, good work accomplished by just following some simple principles. So I hope that was valuable. It's certainly valuable to me. I'm going to keep sharing stuff with you guys as I go along, things that help me and experiences that I have while I try and kick this addiction. And if it was valuable to you, let me know. I love hearing that kind of stuff. Thumbs up, subscribe, like, leave me a tweet, something like that. It's all good. I just want to hear that some of this stuff is of some value to some people. So have a wonderful day. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your time. Adam Steele, out.